In this video, we dive into the empowering journey of illuminating your voice as a speaker. You will discover how you can let go of stage fright and the fear of what other people are going to think of you by harnessing the power of visualization and learn how a misunderstanding of universal laws keeps you trapped in a state of perfectionism. Together, we are going to explore how you can use the power of your mind to assimilate a clear image of the subject you want to convey, and how the intention of adding value will create lasting impact on your audience. Hi, my name is Oscar, and I help people raise their vibration and share their gift with the world. And in this video, we're going to look at how you can illuminate your voice and share your light as an empowered speaker. So, when I grew up, I was terrified of what other people were going to think of me if I did anything that stood out. This was especially prominent when I were in school and you were supposed to answer questions. I really hated raising my hand and needing to answer a question, because I could feel this, this thing inside of my stomach just coming up and roaring and feeling like this is so troublesome. And this fear, it just kept on being there, and it made me isolate myself towards the world, not sharing my voice. And even though I was reading a lot of things and I'm like, this is what people are going to need to hear, I never mustered the courage to truly give from myself. And this just kept on going throughout my life. Every time a situation came up where I was supposed to share what I knew, standing up and having public speaking in front of the classroom was something I was deathly afraid of. And I didn't even think that I needed to take care of this, but as life progressed, I started to see how I started to hold back my voice and not speaking my mind on things, not trusting that my voice mattered. And this pressure just kept on building inside of me. And I felt that, well, if I don't share it, I feel I have failed. I failed myself and I failed the world. So I needed to do something about it. And that's when, I became maybe 30 years old and I discovered something that's called comfort zone crushing. Basically, you go out on the street, you lay down, and people look at you while you're lying on the ground. Obviously, this is not a street where cars are driving, but rather it's a street where people are walking. But it's still terrifying. And I did that. And when I did that, I started to sense how these fears are essentially false expectations appearing real. But it doesn't make them less frightening. And it took a long time for me to discover how to really get my voice out there. But one of the key parts that I discovered lying there on the street was that it's more of the expectation of what's going to happen than what actually will happen that is frightening. And an expectation is the same as you're having a mind projection about what is going to occur. And a mind projection doesn't necessarily need to be in a frightening situation. You can essentially imagine yourself in any scenario, and your mind will feel it as if it's happening. So if you're going to share your voice as an empowered speaker and you're afraid of how the message is going to be received, or standing on a stage and seeing people look at you, you can use the power of your visualization to go to the worst case scenario. And by being in the worst case scenario and feeling it to the depth of your being, you will start to see how this fear starts diminishing as you're just staying with your attention on it. So anytime when you're going to share something, you can do this before, because then it will feel so less frightening of doing it, because you've already faced the worst possible thing that could happen. So that's one thing that I want you to think of. And this is using the power, or what do you call it, the universal law of mentalism, which essentially says that everything is thought. And because everything is thought, then when you're thinking, it's the same thing as you're experiencing in your real life. So that was one thing that I used in order to overcome it, because I've done all kind of crazy things, right? Right now, I'm standing in my room and recording this instead of standing outside, because I noticed that the sound really weren't that good, and I want to convey value here. So I decided to give this a try and see how it works. The second thing that I want to talk to you about that also keeps you trapped in this state of perfectionism is that I'm sure you've noticed in your life when people aren't that good at speaking on camera or in front of other people or standing on stage, we catch ourselves in the judgment of, oh, that he could have done better. Or even worse, it's like, oh, that was a terrible speaker. And we give ourselves permission to give that judgment to them. But what we're not keeping in mind then is that as we're projecting that idea that they are not perfect enough, which means that they are imperfect in the way they are, because we're projecting it, we're also projecting it inwards towards ourselves, right? Because it's the law of cause and effect. Everything you do to others will be done unto you. You cannot escape your own judgment against others, because it's the same as the judgment against you. So if you're ever starting out, or you're trying to start out, or you want to share your voice as a speaker, you will be afraid to do so if you judge others who even though their best attempts fail to do it good, right? So I really, because I had such a big judgment towards people in how they should do things, because, well, I sing and I can hear the pitch when other people are singing, right? And I can sense like, oh no, that was a sour note, that wasn't pitch perfect. But if I'm afraid of, or if I judge others of not being perfect in their way of intonation or speaking up, then I will be afraid of that too. And I can certainly not do something imperfect. So consistent, committed, imperfect action, in order to even get there, you have to let go of any perfectionism you have against others, because that's the only way you will be able to let go of it towards yourself. So once you get those two pieces handled, right, you go to the fear of the judgment, or you go to the fear of what other people are going to think of you if you do what you do. You visualize it, and you also let go of the judgment. Once you do that, you will start to come to a place of neutrality, where how you perceive the world will be much more in a state of harmony than before, where maybe judgment, fear, or guilt, or whatever, or shame was there and crowded or clouded your perception. So once you're in neutrality, which is a state of consciousness, you can move into willingness. And the willingness is the willingness to serve. Many of us light workers, we have a desire to share what we know and the desire to give value. So as soon as you move through that state and come to neutrality, you have much more easier to give from yourself from that place of adding value. And once you do, people will start to feel it. They will feel that this is valuable. And that's what will start creating ripple effect. Now, something that I really discovered not that long ago at all, actually, because when I create my videos, I really need to have a clear outline of how am I going to present this. It's almost like my mind needs to have a picture, but this picture for me is more of a sense, like it's an intuition about these things. So I sit on my iPad and I pick a subject, and then I sit down and then I start writing. And I notice that these pieces comes in chunks, right? You write it down and then something new comes, and then something new. And I really need to have that picture before I can stand in front of the camera, because otherwise it feels like my mind is all over the place. So I would suggest that you do the same, that when you go to convey something, write it down and start sensing how the next thing will build upon it. So this image starts to become clear of, oh, this is how I will hook the reader. This is how the story transitions in it. And here are the takeaways. Here are the things that I'm going to talk about that will put this together and make it more wholesome. So for me, I really need to have this image inside of my mind, because if it's not there, it's like my wording will be troublesome. So I want you to really think of that. And another thing, since we're light workers and we want to add value, we can invoke powers to aid us when we're standing in front of the camera or standing on stage. Before I record, I always invoke certain deities like Archangel Michael or Archangel Gabriel, just to sense how they infuse me with their essence. It's almost like it makes me more safe, more calm, more collected. So I can convey my message in a much more clear fashion. Second thing I do after the invocation is intention setting. I always have the intention of adding value. And I always have the intention of that this is going to reach the right people and speak to their hearts in the way they need to be spoken to. And any other intention that you feel you can add. And then your mind starts looking for it. Or it starts keeping it in mind for how it's going to be perceived, how it's going to be conveyed. Something I also do is that when I speak, I normally put a pause when I speak, because it both builds anticipation of what comes next, but it also allows you as a listener to make up your own conclusions of what I've just said. So you are filling out the gaps with your mind to the words that I'm saying and the pauses I'm holding. So that's it. And that was Alexa. Anyway, guys, I hope you got some valuable insights out of this. And remember, use the power of invocation and intention as you're going to convey a message. And if you're fearful when you're standing on stage or in front of the camera, visualize the worst possible scenario ahead of time and let it go. Feel it to the bones. Let go of your idea of perfectionism towards others. And assimilate a clear image of what it is that you want to convey. And just get going. Taking consistent, committed, imperfect action. All right. Please comment below what golden nuggets you took from this. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. And that's it. Peace, love, and joy to all of you. Bye for now.